am more than my physical body. Because I am more than physical matter, I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world. I deeply desire to expand, to experience, to know, to understand, to control, to use such greater energies and energy systems as may be beneficial and constructive to me and to those who follow me. I deeply desire the help and cooperation, the assistance, the understanding of those individuals whose wisdom, development, and experience are equal to or greater than my own. I ask their guidance and protection from any influence or any source that might provide me with less than my stated desires.
I do not know all the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I am the void.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Broadcasting live from a shack on a hill in the Mossy Creek bottoms of Cane Creek, Arkansas. God, I hope you can hear me. This is Lighting the Void live here on YouTube. And happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Hope you guys had a good Christmas. And we're heading into the new year. It's almost 2025. Didn't you think we'd have flying cars by now? I definitely did, man. When I was a kid, I thought when it got to be like 2025, it'd be like Back to the Future. Got to do a little sound check here, but I thought that for sure there'd be flying cars and stuff by now, you know. Not just drones. You know. Even though I got a lot of feedback with that with the drone episode, like people are kind of tripping about that. But yeah, I mean, just look into the laws about the drones. That's the thing that should scare you the most, not the fact that there are drones in the sky, but the laws that govern them. You know, that the stuff that they get away with, the stuff that we don't even notice. To me, and I'm not a big conspiracy guy, but to me, everything already has been planned out. Like, look, just think about this for a second, okay? There could be, and there probably is, a substantial amount of technological, and we know now biological. I won't say any more about that because of the old YT, but there could be a substantial war going on in the background that we would never even know about, because now it doesn't really have to be troops on the ground like Russia and Ukraine, even though that kind of happens, but it could be tech on the internet for sure. Misinformation, which has been information and misinformation has been happening since the beginning of the intelligence agencies, right? So that's happening, but now they could have tech wars and biological wars going on in the background that we're not even aware of. And I didn't even think about this. It wasn't even a thing in my head until that time when people accidentally hit the launch buttons. You remember that? we did in Hawaii and then they did in Japan, and both of them said, oh, it was an accident. It was something like some kind of thing to worry about. Nothing to worry about, I mean, is what I'm trying to say. So both people in Hawaii and in Japan that year, I forget what year it was. I want to say it was like 2020, initiated launch codes, and you can look this up, and then both of them said it was an accident. So that ought to tell you that there's some him-hawing going around behind us, you know, some flexing going around. So these drones that people are worried about, more likely what you need to worry about is the PSYOP testing. I mean, we're like lab rats for these people. Anyways, so we'll get into. I hope you guys had a good Christmas, and I want to thank. Let me see. Looks like Ari the cat. He said, "I'm pretty sure I messed up and started sleeping with my boss at the shop recently. She stole my last hat." Really? So you bought an LTV hat? Thanks, brother. I don't know why you would do that. That's terrible. You're not supposed to mix business with pleasure. You know that, right, Ari? What is it? Don't poo where you work or something like that. Isn't that how that goes? So, big shout out. We've gotten a few extra subscribers and stuff too. So thank you guys. We do have flying cars in China. Merry Christmas to you too, brother. What's up, Sir Wolf? Let me just say hi to everybody that showed up in chat. Domek. Always the first. I'm going to start playing Domek's walk down music. Susie, MJ, Jane, Christy Belly, Ari, Delina, Sir Wolf. What's up? Look, I've made that mistake. Back when I was in my 30s, I made that mistake. I got involved with my boss, and turned out pretty bad. So, early 30s, not late 30s. So what did we talk about before? Besides the drone things, we were talking about the hypnagogic state, and yeah, I am going to get Mark on here. It's just a matter of, it's like herding cats, honestly, but he'll get on here. But the hypnagogic state is something I started kind of messing with here recently, even though we've been staying up super late nights. I've been staying up really late with like Anthony and Bryce and my son and a couple other people, just kind of playing video games. But the Christmas, we had a pretty good Christmas, surprisingly good. Now, so we're going to get back into, because we're almost done with this thing. We might even wrap it up tonight, actually. But we're going to get done with Rogo's work on this, which is surprisingly very well written. I feel like everything that comes back from the 80s and the 90s is better. Even the books. Now it's the books. 80s, 90s, the movies, the books. I'm getting back into that nostalgia thing. But he goes on to say that one of my initial OBEs was that for the first time in my life, I suddenly became aware of the hypnagogic state. So no one had told him about it. He just became aware of it. And he never paid attention before to the pre-sleep phase. But now I found myself immersed in it, he said. So I don't know about you guys, but what happens to me? What's up, Wes? What's up, Jess? Merry Christmas. I don't know about you guys, but what happens to me is the reason why the hypnagogic state is so hard to stay in is because you don't know. Like if you just relax in total, you won't know when you slip into it. You won't. The next thing you know, it's like your brain just kind of fades into, what's up, Trey? I got your email, brother. You look good in that LTV hoodie, by the way. Merry Christmas. But when you slip into the hypnagogic state, you won't, if it's done correctly and the most natural way, you don't know it. So 1 minute you're laying down in your bed, like say you set your book on the nightstand or whatever, and you're good. You know, and then the next minute, you're having images, like you're seeing images of things. And what's happening is you're just kind of slipping off into sleep and you don't know it. So to catch yourself in the hypnagogic state is pretty important. And actually, who gave me this idea? Was it Bootsy? He gave me this idea that we should get into Ospensky, because that is the most interesting stuff on the planet when it comes to conscious exploration. Right, is the hypnagogic state, because we're actually in that place between sleep and awake, which opens up a whole paradigm of stuff. Just hear me out. Not just to be able to like explore consciousness or have an out of body experience or have a lucid dream, but the idea that we're in a multiverse, or the idea that we are somehow under this effect of like the Mandela effect because of the multiverse. I stayed up the other night watching stuff on the Mandela effect, and I'm totally convinced it's real now. I used to think it was a joke. I would laugh at people. I think it's 100% real. Like something happened. There are definite things that were real when I was younger that now are showing up as something totally different. So it makes me wonder, like if I almost called him Voldoon again. It's like if Muldoon is right, and so we have like this etheric double that slips in and out of our bodies, does the Earth or planets do, like, I'm not trying to claim to know anything about quantum whatever or multiverses, but are we slipping out of, you know what I mean? Like, we think there's just this one ball called Earth, but in ultimate reality, truth, there's something going on. Like maybe the Earth has an etheric double, or maybe consciousness isn't really what we think it is. Like, so every night we go to sleep, even though multiple people are falling asleep all over the place, we think we're all still in the same spot, but our consciousness could be moving to different areas. It could. If you think about it, it could. It's the same concept as like, are we all seeing the same colors? We all define the same colors based on the reflections that our eyes take in. It's all the same formula. But are we really seeing the same colors? We don't know that. Just like we don't know if our consciousness, every night we go to sleep, is actually waking up in the same reality that we were in before. Because it's an on and off switch for our bodies, and our consciousness just goes wherever. So that's a whole other rabbit hole. Basically what I'm saying is the hypnagogic state, though, is the only doorway that we can slip into this realm, right? Because without losing consciousness, if we're really good at it, if we're really good at playing with this place of hypnagogia. Just like we know that the unconscious is running everything. It's running the show. It's running our lives. It's running everything. So how do we tap into it? Well, one of the only ways that the ancient spiritualists and gurus and all these people knew how to tap into it was through breath work, because you can take control of your breathing, but you can also let it go, and the unconscious kind of does it on its own, like it runs all the other processes of the body. So when you slip into hypnagogia, what you're actually doing is I'm not saying scientifically, but what you're doing is you're conscious of everything, and then you're letting go of the conscious part of your body. So that little doorway in between, I'm consciously into my body, right? And I'm doing whatever, and then I'm letting go. There's that doorway that we should play with and slip into. And I think if we do this enough, we'll figure out the Mandela effect. I want to do a whole show on that actually one day, but I got to get all my ducks in a row for it, because do any of you guys feel like you're in a weird reality right now? You know, like I would say even 6 months ago, let's say a year ago, I felt like I was on this timeline, this path, so to speak. And now I feel like I've kind of slipped into something else. Like I'm almost like I'm waiting on another timeline. It's a weird feeling, you know? So, and I think hypnagogia shows us this. Like, it shows us this in a conscious way, like how stuff can go from completely stable to just chaos. And then there's like a doorway. Man, I'll fall asleep sometimes and just have some crazy images of like, I'll give you an example. I grew up playing football. I used to be a breathe, eat, sleep, whatever football when I was younger. I don't care about football now. For some reason, I just don't. There's a couple of teams I like to watch and keep up with, both college and NFL, but that's it. Well, the other night I laid down and I wasn't doing anything. I was playing Marvel Rivals with my son, and Anthony Tyler was on there with us. And then he went off, and then I went on to play Fortnite with Anthony and all the stuff into the late night. It gets about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I just tremble over to my bed. I lay down, and I told myself this time, because I think I was talking to Jay or somebody about this, I'm going to try to stay conscious. I'm going to play with the hypnagogic thing. And it was so hard because I haven't done it in so long with hypnagogia. Like, I would just lay down, and next thing you know, I'm off. So I'd literally wake myself back up and go, let's try this again. But back to the football thing. I was seeing football images of games going across, like just play after play of football games as I was drifting off. It meant absolutely nothing. Why the hell am I seeing this? What does it mean? And we always think that because we read Carl Jung and stuff, that we think that everything in a dream means something. And I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there's times when our consciousness slips into this like chaos of frequencies. And hypnagogia is one of those places. Because after I kept trying it, the night after that too, Christmas Eve even, and then last night too, the images were totally random. It's like being a part of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy and someone hit a button and everything goes crazy. So to get back to normality, you either have to slip off into sleep and lose consciousness of the body or of this reality, or wake back up. So it's when I say we should play with hypnagogia, it is one of the most elusive places to play with. But at the same time, I think there's doorways in this place where we could figure out how to get out of body better, how to explore our consciousness better, and even what the mandala effect is, what's really going on. Because that's real, dude. Now, I'm not going to argue with people about flat earth or Sasquatch or any, but the mandala effect, I will argue it until the cows come home. My memory is not that bad. You know, my memory isn't so to where I forgot how Fruit Loops was spelled, or the Berenstain Bears, or things about Star Wars, or Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Like, no freaking way, especially all the Disney stuff. My grandmother had a video store growing up, a little video shack. We called it, I forget what we called it, ICO video store or something. It was just a little, back when you could just rent VHSs, and she had a little video store. So I watched all of the Disney movies when I was a kid, not just the cartoons, but all of them. Over and over and over and over again. I burned all that stuff into my mind. And I know for a fact that my memory is not wrong about a lot of these things. So either someone's playing a wicked game or the mandala effect is real, and I'm going with the latter. I definitely want to do a show on the mandala effect. So anyways, Rogo goes on to say, I'd never before paid attention to this pre-sleep imagery phase, but I found myself immersed in it. And it's fun, yeah. Each night as I dropped off to sleep, I would see a panorama of scenes before my eyes, sometimes brief and sometimes so elaborate that it seemed as if I was actually dreaming. And the more attention I paid to these images, the more I developed the capacity to prolong the hypnagogic state, which is still freaking hard. It's incredibly hard to do, like to prolong that state. He says, one night I was lying in my bed, very near sleep, well into the hypnagogic state, and immersed in a half dream, in which I was... that's why my freaking volume is so low, because anyways, in which I was driving wildly down a freeway. Yeah, so he see what I mean? He just slipped right into that. 1 minute he's in reality, the next minute he's driving down a freeway. I was quite aware that I was dreaming, but the experience was very realistic, and I fought to keep control of the car. Then it dawned on me that nothing would happen if I crashed. So he was aware. So at the moment, I had an intuitive feeling that if I crashed the car, I would leave the body. I deliberately swerved off the road and began to plunge down an embankment. I felt an instant and wonderful sense of relief as I found myself floating above my body. Over the next few months, I had several of these driving dreams and hypnagogic reveries. I could usually leave the body by manipulating them, but my theory is that these very special dreams were messages produced by my unconscious when I entered into a projection state. See, I don't agree with that. Not in hypnagogia. Like, I don't think that everything that happens in the hypnagogic state is from, I mean, it is from your unconscious, but I don't think that it has to mean something deep all the time. Like, you'll know when it does. What's up, Grant? What's up, Lisa? So what did he say? Over the next few months, I had several of these dreams. My theory is that these very special dreams were messages produced by my unconscious. I don't think they're all super special. I don't want to take that away from anybody, though. Crashing the car was a method of releasing control of my consciousness so that the OBE could manifest. I did not ever experiment with trying to induce this particular imagery, however. The driving dreams always manifested spontaneously. So what is he saying? Like, so if he crashed his car, it would put him into an OBE state? Like, he intuitively knew that? Or is he using it like a portal? As another curious byproduct of my new awareness, I began noticing certain symbols in my dreams, which seemed to be alerting me to ways of getting out of the body. Yes, symbols are important. That I agree with, for sure. I did not exactly experience these clues as lucid dreams, but would merely get a flash of insight during a normal dream of a way to experience an out-of-body experience. Now, this type of insight usually came when I was dreaming about a small chute or hole that I could hurl myself through. Wait, what? One of my most amusing encounters came during a dream in which I was walking down the corridor of a building. A large trash chute was in the wall next to me, and even though the dream did not actually become lucid, some instinct told me to jump into the chute. I awoke totally cataleptic, which is, I guess, paralyzed, and in a projection state. And after a brief struggle, I was able to induce a brief OBE during which I hovered joyfully over my body. So wait a minute. Hold on a second. That would actually be pretty cool, right? Like, maybe he's creating this, and maybe he's telling himself, hey, if I find a hole anywhere and I just jump into it, I'm going to project myself in where I'm sleeping. That would be cool. But I don't know if is he talking about this as if it's like a set rule, or he created this rule? Okay, so these various experiences resulted from the spontaneous manifestation of imagery strategies of the sort Muldoon suggested for the conscious projection of nocturnal separations. Yeah, so he's, in a sense, like he's telling his consciousness. It's kind of like when you're a kid and you go, hey, you step on the cracks, you'll break your back, you know. So if you took that into a dream, you know, you'd step on the cracks, you'd probably actually break your back, or something would happen in the dream. So maybe he's telling himself, when I go through any hole in my dreams, it's going to take me back to the OBE state. It's going to be like a portal, which is pretty rad, actually, because now he's treating it like a video game, right? He's treating it just like a video game. It is therefore likely that one can learn to leave the body by the use of specially prepared dreams or hypnagogic strategies. The problem is how to discover just which symbols or dream scenarios will work best. Muldoon himself realized that the precise scenarios will differ from person to person. Yeah, I think it would differ from person to person based on your own consciousness. Like, what would be, because for me, I don't know if I would use holes, but maybe I would say something like doors. or televisions. Every time I see a TV or a door, that's gonna be a portal for me, and I would just jump through the portal. But then again, that kind of seems like it's like the new Matrix movie where they're trying to get out of the Matrix, and it's like jump through the mirror, I don't know if you guys seen the newest Matrix film, but it's kind of like that, which would be freaking trippy if that's what's really going on in our dream world. But my own opinion is that any technique or prepared dream sequence will work as long as you give yourself the suggestion that it will work and fully expect it to. So it has to be something that you're comfortable with, something that you would know. Like, I don't think everybody would use like trash chutes for a portal. So here, I'll give you an example. Like if I'm in a dream, there are certain rules that I have for myself. Number one, if I die, I'm going to wake up, period. So if I become lucid and let's say I'm at the top of a building or something and I jump off that building and I smack the ground, I'm probably not going to feel any pain, even though I might feel an impact or something, but I'm going to wake up, and I'll be damned if it doesn't happen every time. So with that being said, that means you can wake yourself up that's a portal in a sense. That's a conscious portal. I've had people argue with me about this. Like, no, that's not a portal. You're waking up because your body thinks it's dead in the dream. It's like, no, I made that rule for myself in my dream world. I made that rule. I could have made a rule up like every time I slap myself 3 times, I'm going to wake up. But no, but this was my rule for that portal. If I die, no matter how I die in the dream, it's going to wake me up. So that means, I'm saying all that to say this, that means that you can make rules for getting to different states of consciousness. So now that we know that there are portals, we have a portal for waking up, we've got a portal for lucid dreaming or regular dreaming, and we've got a portal for the OBE state where the body is, right? This is getting more interesting. So, the lesson here is that once you have initially left the body or are merely practicing, your mind will start presenting you with clues and hints on how to best get out of your body. During the time of my active experiments with out-of-body travel, I played very little with dream induction methods. Yet as soon as I had opened the door, the experience triggered many changes in my dream and pre-sleep life. This new awareness clued me as to new possibilities and potentials. Yeah, it's freaking cool, if you ask me, to do dream work like this. The final question is obvious. How do you know when an OBE produced through dream control is an actual OBE and just not a dream? And because yes, absolutely yes, you can have a dream that you're having an out-of-body experience. I've done this countless times. And it's like, oh, I'm out of body. Here's my room. There's my body. I'm flying around. But if you pay attention, it doesn't even feel like remotely close to the reality or look like your room. Because when you actually wake up from that dream, you'll notice there's a huge difference. It's not the same thing, Most experienced practitioners can tell the difference experientially. Yeah. So to them, the subjective experience between the being out of body and merely having a lucid dream is as clear as the difference between waking and dreaming for the average person. Keith Harary, I got to get into this guy's work. I'm probably butchering his name, but he likes to explain that his out-of-body experience is different quality from his dreams as vividly as do his dreams from his waking life. That is probably the realest and coolest thing I've heard someone say that's so spot on about this. Because I've told people time and time again, like if you've had like a real etheric OBE, or what I call like an etheric OBE, it's going to look and feel like it does right now, like wherever you are right now as we're talking in this broadcast on December the 26th, 2024 at 9:43 p.m. Central Time. Whatever you're observing right now, the etheric OBE experience is going to look, and feel almost exactly like this, if not more real sometimes, right? It's very different than dreaming that you're having an out-of-body experience. So he goes on to say that most people can tell the difference experientially, right? To them, the subjective experience between out-of-body and merely having a lucid dream is pretty clear. So there's no reason to doubt the core validity of this type of subjective assessment. At first, however, novice of an out-of-body traveler, you may have had a hard time distinguishing an OBE from a lucid dream. It does, I mean, at first it shouldn't be too hard though. And again, I keep pausing in the text, but again, this is the freaking reason why I say that peeling yourself out of body, doing one of those rope methods, peel methods, or whatever as you relax and lay down is so freaking important. It's so important because I'm not taking away from the dream experience. I think this stuff is really cool. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to experiment with it even more, But if you don't have that one experience where you're just kind of laying down, relaxing, and then peeling yourself out of body, and then if you don't have that experience, you might think that the dreams that you're having that about being out of body are actually etheric OBEs, because you can dream. You can dream your room and your yard, and you can dream all this stuff. It feels totally different. I hope I'm making sense, because I feel like consciousness is such a chaotic thing to talk about sometimes, So both Hugh Calloway and Frederick Van Eden originally confused the two experiences and considered them analogs. A complicating factor is that as you experiment, you may actually dream of leaving the body. Exactly. I swear to God, I didn't read ahead on this book. But this dude is validating everything I'm saying, which is cool. With practice, however, you should be able to tell the difference. That's the big point. Some telltale signs may help you to discriminate between these two levels of mental experience. Celia Green, who made an in-depth study of lucid dreaming as well as the out-of-body, sums them up as follows. Here's the rules. Do you like how all these people have these rules for this stuff, right? What's up, Robo 1776, New England Dirt Roadie, Max? What's up, Max? So here's the rules they made. The OBE usually occurs from a waking state or upon waking from a dream, while a lucid dream usually evolves from more normal dreaming. Because most of the time, you'll be in a dream, and then you'll suddenly realize you're in a dream. That's a lucid dream. The OBE occurs from a waking state where you're awake, you're not asleep at all, or waking up from a dream, not evolving into something else. So the lucid dreamer often finds incongruities in the dream environment. The out-of-body experiencer usually experiences him or herself in a consistent environment, as if he or she were in the real world, and it looks exactly like it. But he does put a little asterisk at the bottom here, and he says this, which he should have just, if you leave it, but he had to put the asterisk. This is not an absolute principle, since incongruities are known to occur while one is out of body. Okay, fair enough. But for instance, a normally dark room may seem perfectly illuminated, but the environment will be much more self-consistent than a dream world tends to be. You gotta do both, because if you do both, you're gonna see the difference. I know it's a lot of work, but it's freaking cool, and you'll see the difference. You got to do both. Okay, here's the next rule. Lucid dreams often include fantastic dreamlike elements, like just shit that's not real. It's beyond reality, right? Most conventional OBEs are rather mundane. Yeah, they're pretty boring most of the time. As far as like what's happening around you and stuff like that. OBEs are usually experienced as more vivid, more real, and emotionally intense than lucid dreams, which no matter how aware one becomes in time, remain dreams. That's right. Lucid dreams always are just dreams. So Number 5, the lucid dreamer invariably experiences him or herself as possessing a body, while many OBEers find themselves disembodied. I don't know if that's true. Like, that's the last rule, yeah, but I'm pretty sure I've had a lucid dream of being something other than in my body. Or in a body. Like, I think I had a lucid dream one time that I was a vehicle once, but I realized I'm not a vehicle. I'm dreaming. So I don't know about that. Robo1776 in the chat said, my last OBE, my senses were heightened by 10 times, and my mind was calm and my vision was perfect. The room was the same, but the furniture was rearranged, and I saw a huge travel boat was outside my window. That's pretty interesting. Anyways, those are supposedly the rules to know the difference between, is this a lucid dream or am I having an out-of-body experience? To me, it's night and day. It's night and day. Like, you have to experience both to know both, right? Another point of difference is how one experiences him or herself while undergoing a lucid dream. The average lucid dreamer experiences the dream body as his or her only form. See, I don't know about that, man. Because it could be true, though. But I'm pretty sure I've had a lucid dream that I was something other than a human. Is that what he's saying? Let's read on. We'll get some more context if we keep reading. Although the lucid dreamer may levitate and fly about, usually there is no true awareness that his or her real physical body is somewhere else. Okay, I'll buy that. A person undergoing an OBE is usually deeply aware of having separated from his or her physical body. Yes, absolutely. He or she thinks about this body, which the lucid dreamer does not. That's actually a pretty good point. That's a really good point. Because when you're doing like the OBE stuff, you're totally aware of your physical body and that you're separating from it at all times. Even when you're out of body, moving around, you are still aware of your physical body and where it is, and you feel like you're being pulled to it all the time. Versus like if you're in a dream, even a lucid dream, you don't really feel attached to anything. This is you, so to speak. So yeah, that's actually really good. I like that. So he or she thinks about this body, which the lucid dreamer does not. The sense of being away from the physical body, which may be resting miles away, is a definite attribute of the OBE. I've had, for instance, several nocturnal OBEs while out of town on business, and usually I suddenly find myself back in my home in Los Angeles with no awareness of actually having left the body. And on each occasion, the experience has been accompanied by the initial reaction of, what am I doing here? My body's in New York, or wherever I happen to be visiting. Okay, so this awareness of virtual separation from the body always alerts me to my out-of-body state and rarely occurs during simple lucid dreaming. For this reason, I also think that many of Van Eden's initial lucid dreams were actually OBEs. Thank God. This is like the one book where I finally read this, where I feel like I've been struggling with this, lucid dream versus the OBE thing for like, I don't know. If you've been listening to this show like 6 years, maybe. Because trying to explain the difference, this is perfect. I'm so excited, actually, right now that I'm reading this. So in the long run, however, you'll be able to tell the difference between a dream and an OBE with experience. And this is the whole issue with, then this whole issue will seem academic to you. Yeah. In other words, it won't matter anymore because you'll know the difference. Here's where things get like even more complicated with conscious exploration, though. Some people, and I've found this whole thing, that want to get out of body, some people really, really struggle with relaxation, being able to relax get to the vibratory state, popping out of body. Or when they get to the vibratory state, they get freaked out or they're scared because they're not comfortable with the sleep paralysis. So they're buying a whole bunch of courses on OBE stuff, and then they're being trained to, eventually they're going to be trained to surpass that fear somehow. Versus, what if someone else said, well, look, we can take the other route. The other route would be the lucid dreaming and making portals in the lucid dream that takes you back to where your actual physical body is. I think that would be a good idea for people that have issues with relaxation or the fear of sleep paralysis. Start them with the lucid dream and work them backwards. The reason why is because when they go back to their body, then they're going to be like, oh shit, like this is a totally different place. Like, here's my body. The dream is over there. And then eventually they're going to feel that vibration or that paralysis, whether they try to force themselves to wake up or because they're freaked out or whatever. But once they feel it, once they realize that experience, they'll never have that same fear again, because that's how fear works. It's a bitch. Like, you could be so immensely scared of something, and until you get on the other side of it, you're not going to know how small it is. And everybody on the other side of that fear is always telling you, it's nothing. Don't worry about it. They'll even laugh. It's stupid. But fear is such an intense thing. It's so massive. It's worse than compound interest or a growing cancer. Like, fear is terrible. It really is. And it's never until we get past it that we realize, what the hell was I even afraid of? That's crazy. So it's really hard to get past it, is what I'm saying. So instead of people are dumping thousands of dollars trying to get out of body, and then they get to this paralysis state, and their instructors are telling them, well, start to get, this is where they're going with this. Just start to get comfortable with death. What? I mean, now you're playing with a whole other fear. But once you get past the fear of death or past the fear of this or that, then you won't worry about sleep paralysis. Man, that all just seems unnecessary to me. I mean, maybe ask them how comfortable are you with lucid dreaming? Oh, most of them are going to say, I love lucid dreaming. It's amazing. Okay, well, let's create portals for you inside your lucid dream that's going to send you back to your body. And then eventually you'll realize that you're out of body. You'll know the difference. And even at first, I would create a portal in the dream as a rule, like I used to, that wakes you up. Not even the OBE state. First, create a portal that wakes you up. So a rule in your mind would be, if I die, I wake up. If I jump off a building, I wake up. If I drowned, I wake up. That's kind of an intense rule, but that's my rule. So once that happens, then you can say, okay, now let's create another rule. Let's create another portal inside the lucid dream that's going to take you back to your sleeping body, your actual sleeping body. Bam. Now, boom. They do that one day. They end up back at their sleeping body. Now they have to go through that sleep paralysis. You're kind of forcing them to go through it, but from the other end of it, not from trying to lay there and then they get all freaked out, but from trying to wake up. So now all of a sudden they're feeling that pull back towards their body. And then eventually they're going to end up in their body. They're not going to go back to the lucid dream, right? Because this is a whole different density. So they'll go back to their body, and then they'll feel all of that stuff that's related to it as they wake up. And they'll be on the other side of that fear. And they'll be like, oh, shit, okay. So yeah, I really didn't need to be freaked out about it. Because in my opinion, the worst thing that you can do, I was raised by a hard ass. So if I was afraid of something, they just push you through it. Oh, you don't want to swim? Swim, right? You don't want to ride a bike? Shove you down a hill. You scared to fight that guy? Fight him or I'm going to whoop your ass. That's the kind of stuff I was raised up in. That stuff to me, creates more problems than it does solutions. if there's another way around it, that fear, then do it. If there's not, then you got to face it. But this is a way around it, so you can actually see how ridiculous. I don't want to say ridiculous because people get offended, but how small it really is, right? Like, yeah, because there's ways to train people through stuff. I didn't know this stuff, but I understand it now, you know. Not everybody can just meet their fears head on. You know, in fact, one time, before we get into the next part of this, I met a girl that when I was speaking at that event with Grimerica and we were talking about magic and the out-of-body state, I met a girl that said that she had issues with sleep paralysis all of her life. All of her life. Can you imagine that? How terrifying that is? And she would talk about how fearful she would get in these states, the sleep paralysis state. But when she talked about lucid dreaming, it was nothing. It was fun. The only time that she didn't fear it was when she was actually, she said, when she was here or in the room where I was kind of guiding people through the stuff. But when she's by herself, it freaks her the hell out. So even that, after that event, she left and started having sleep paralysis again. And then still, it freaked her out again. So what does that tell us? That tells us that she needs to know that she's safe, that there's someone there that's going to take care of her if something bad happens to her, both physically and spiritually. That's kind of what she wants. But we can dodge that. We can dodge that. Just by this method that we've been talking about right here, we can dodge all that shit. We don't have to push somebody to the edge of the cliff and say, face your fear, even though I believe there's some healthy growth that happens with stuff like that. But in this case, it's not necessary, right? It's not like a life-changing thing that's necessary. You know, you don't have to traumatize people through it. You want to feel good, you know. That's what I'm trying to say. Like, this needs to be a fun and good experience. You don't want to traumatize people trying to get them out of body. But cool method, really cool method. All right, we got to do the short break. Listen, please, guys, if you can, support the station. And Ari, make sure that you send a picture of that hat. Because I'm making a new collage, right? Yeah, that's a good way to say it, Christy. Like, peel the onion. Yeah, you don't have to just jump straight to the core of your fears. Find another way around it. It's okay. It's not going to hurt anything, you know. In this case, in my opinion, in life, there are some things that you need to face, like bullies and shit like that, like things you got to face. But out of body experiences, it's not that life changing that you can't just develop another method. So this lucid dream method is totally cool. In fact, I'm going to experiment with this some more for sure. 4 minutes, run to the restroom, do whatever you got to do. Stay with us.
Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from
TalkStream
Live. you'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now. The Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No, you hold my hand.
Here we go.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
yeah,
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
My mother was always very active and independent, and she was familiar with her neighborhood. But one day, she stopped at the stop sign for much longer than usual. She wasn't even really sure where she was at.
It's really important for you to talk to someone about it. I felt so much better after my son told me, "Mom, we'll figure it out."
When something feels different, it could be Alzheimer's. Now is the time to talk. Visit alz.org/ourstories to learn more.
Have you ever wondered, what do the stars say for me? Or will the next month or the next year be more favorable? How about, are our two signs compatible? Each month at the new moon, you can ask these questions live with me, your astrologer psychic, Mary DeCina, along with host of Lighting the Void, Joe Root. Join us at the new moon for Cosmic Conditions. We look forward to working with your energy.
Every new moon at 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern, right here on Fringe FM.
Do you want to know the truth? Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of the Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Inside my head, there's a little place left for you. What do you know?
Broadcasting from Forest Tower Studios, all the way from the Deep South. Now, here is your host, Joe Root.
I wouldn't make it a habit calling me that, son.
What do I know?
What happened? What happened? We can't play that song. I hit a wrong button. We can't play that song. Thanks, Robo1776 for the 10. That helps us get the station back on. Guys, it's the end of the year, so not only do we got to re-up the domain, we got to get the station back on, and we're more than halfway there, so that helps out a lot. And he says, Rube. Well, it's Roop, R-U-P-E, but I wish my last name was R-U-B-E. It'd be a lot cooler, but lead us out of this madhouse called Earth. I may take a week off to remote motel, and it's OBE or bust. You know, that actually might not be a bad idea. Because if you corner yourself and then say, I'm not leaving this motel until I have an OBE, that goes back to like dynamizing the will. You're probably going to have an out-of-body experience. Because you've told your consciousness that I'm not leaving or I'm not doing so-and-so or et cetera until I have an out-of-body experience. I mean, that's going pretty far, but, you know, depending on how comfortable you are in your home, that might work. Can you imagine that? Like one day down the road, people are going to have like OBE parties, or they're just going to go to places and be like, look, none of us are leaving this hotel till we all have an OBE. So get your pocketbooks out. Make sure it's like a budget in or something though, because it might take a little bit. Is Mary having another show this month? Yes. Matter of fact, Mary's show will be on the 28th. Every time there's a new moon, Mary will show up. She will be there. You can count on it, at least for now, right? So this next part, I hope everybody understands where I'm coming from before we get into this next part about this next method to get out of body. All right. So Dan Beard said, I'm not going back to work until I have an out of body experience. There you go. Well, I mean, if working is super important to you, like going to your job, if you hate your job, that may not, work out for you. But if you love your job and it's a necessity to work, that might actually work, because you're kind of cornering yourself there again. But I don't know. If you guys do this, by the way, just tell me. I'm not recommending you lock yourself in a motel room, even though that's pretty haggard. I respect that. Or not going back to work until you have an OBE. I respect that too. I'm not condoning that. But look, this is what I do know for sure. If you want to have an out of body experience bad enough, it will happen. Yeah, it'll happen. But anyways, so before we get into this next method that Rogo is going to talk about, I hope everybody understands that what I'm talking about there. If not, you can go back and listen to the video again, or just email me at producer@fringe.fm, or call and leave a voicemail at 501-777-5631. You can always leave a voicemail. I forgot to pull the phones up again. Jesus. It's a call-in show, and I never pull the phones up. It's so dumb. But hopefully everybody understands that. First and foremost, like when you do lucid dreaming, create a portal to like wake up. Don't just create a portal to have an out-of-body experience. Create a portal in your lucid dreams just to wake up, and do that enough until it's almost like until your unconscious picks up on the idea, oh, there's rules in this lucid world. Cool. And then create another portal to have an OBE. That's what I think you should do. Try it. I'm going to try it. We'll see how it works. So the next one that we're going to talk about is astral projection through guided imagery. Yeah. I'm not going back to work. Rupe. People have asked me that too. They're like, is it Rupe? I'm like, no, it's Rupe. Yes, I know it rhymes with poop. I understand. But I'm not one of those guys that has a weird last name that's going to try to change it to sound cool, It's like, no, it's not Rupe, it's Rupe. I hate when people do that. Like, come on, man. You know what your last name is. So a fascinating psychological technique called guided imagery, or the waking dream, merges visualization skills with a self-programmed reverie. Guided imagery. That is the waking dream, which merges visualization skills with a self-programmed reverie. So this involves guiding a meditating subject into an exploration of his or her own unconscious mind by suggesting that the person experience open-ended mental journeys. Any Carl Jung fans are going to really like this one, okay? So each phase of the journey symbolizes a different aspect of the participant's life. We're going to get deep here, all right? The subject responds by reporting the spontaneous imagery that arises as he or she surveys each level of the hypnagogic-like environment. Since the OBE seems inherently related to relaxation, visualization skills, and pre-sleep imagery, the waking dream method might be a plausible approach to its induction. Although no well-known astral projectors of the past or present have used or even suggested guided imagery techniques, that was true then. It's not true now. It's definitely not true now. The basic technique of the waking dream can be readily adapted for such use. One Midwestern psychologist is currently using an approach and is claiming tons of success with it. So the way that we use guided imagery techniques has a pretty big history to it. So when Sigmund Freud discovered the talking culture, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with Sigmund Freud, but if you're into psychology, I'm sure you are. So when he discovered the talking culture of psychoanalysis, his breakthrough revolutionized our conception and understanding of the unconscious. Freud's discovery that access to our unconscious minds can be gained through free association by observing slips of the tongue and through verbalized dream recall were preeminent achievements. That's where we get the whole phrase, the Freudian slip. You know, when you actually say something that you didn't mean. I didn't mean that. And it's like, no, I hate that because people use that against you. And sometimes I don't think it's always a Freudian slip. Sometimes I think it's just a slip of the tongue, but I could be wrong. So in emphasizing the verbal description and component of our mental lives, psychoanalysis ostracized the crucial role that mental imagery can play in our search for self-understanding. The psychoanalyst banned the inner world of daydreaming. Well, Freud banned it. Creative imagery and hypnagogic experiences, along with demons and cold water baths, as viable approaches to mental health and self-discovery. So yeah, people are dousing themselves in cold water. They've been doing this for a long time. Or invoking demons too, you know. So luckily not all turn-of-the-century psychotherapists rushed to join the psychoanalytic bandwagon. Several psychologists in France and Germany realized that mental imagery might represent an alternative key to the unconscious mind. These researchers appreciated the fact that when experiencing a spontaneous mental image during therapy, the patient was dealing with a nonverbal and primordial communication system that is direct messages from the unconscious, often conveying ideas or inner experiences that the patient could not even begin to express in words. These images allowed the astute therapist to grasp what was going on inside the patient's head without having to wade through all the defensive interpretations and maskings that a client would do so often that employed when verbally describing his or her conflicts and problems. That's why therapists sit there and ask you a million questions. They're trying to dig to the baby inside you. And so they have to get past all your defenses and all the stuff that you usually say to people when you're asked these deep questions. And they just keep going around in circles and writing stuff down until they get to the baby inside you, you know. So before long, a few brave clinicians began trying to induce mental imagery in their patients in hopes of using these mental pictures as an aid to psychotherapy. This is pretty redundant, by the way. I think all of us kind of know how psychotherapy works. But one of these pioneers was the German therapist Karl Happich, who worked with what he called emergent images. He would train his patients to relax, learn to breathe steadily and rhythmically, and meditate. Happich considered any resulting mental imagery as direct messages from the unconscious. To stimulate the production of this imagery, he would suggest that his patients go on mental journeys to various locations, such as to a prairie or a mountain or a flowing stream and so on. And he believed that he could actually change his patients' behavior patterns by working directly with the associated images that appeared during these tours. So basically, it's all like active imagination. Now, this idea was later extended by another German therapist, Wolfgang Kretschner, who induced similar landscape images in his patients. Kretschner considered any associated images that surfaced to be symbolic of internal psychic problems. The goal was to show a patient how to gain access to his or her own unconscious mind and the symbols contained within it. A so-called perfect road to self-discovery. Yeah, they did this stuff with Rorschach symbols and stuff too, right? You guys remember that? What's up, Bryce? We still douse ourselves in cold water. I have pictures. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, another pioneers utilized a rather different and much more biological approach to guided imagery. Although he had several predecessors, the most significant of these was Ludwig Frank. And he too had discovered that deep relaxation stimulated the emergence of hypnagogic imagery. Guys, I understand how boring this is, but you need to understand I'm not one of those guys that's going to get on here and start pretending that what I'm talking to you about is something that I have discovered or that I am teaching you. That's what lots of people do. They like read a bunch of information, they find something that works, and they'll throw their little spin on it, and then they'll create a whole marketing scheme about it. Like, I don't want to do that. We all need to know where the stuff comes from, you know. So greatly influenced by the psychoanalytic claim that one could achieve mental health through the discharge or catharsis of unhealthy mental material. He and his followers believed that producing spontaneous mental imagery was a self-normalizing procedure that was automatically cathartic. Therefore, they felt that learning to produce mental imagery was therapeutic in itself. So, we can get past all of the different people that did this. But the basic technique involved into what is called the directed daydream. And the procedure was formally proposed by Robert de Soily, who believed that a patient could be cured of neurotic adaptations by learning to interact with his or her own mental life. So what they would do is induce specific imagery in the patient so that they could learn to confront, evoke, and eventually control even the most threatening images, which were especially chosen to symbolically represent the patient's problems. Doesn't this sound like a bit like demonic invocation? And if you think about it, when you invoke demons, when you draw a circle and you do your visualizations and then you invoke demons, and you're kind of doing the same thing. So this guy took his patients on a fantastic journey in which they traveled down into the ocean or confronted menacing dragons. They better talk about Carl Jung because this sounds so much just like Carl Jung stuff. These symbols, rich in archetypal meaning, are potentially threatening to a great many people. De Soily worked with his patients until they could confront these psychoactive symbols without fear or anxiety. And more than any other researcher before him, with the exception of Carl Jung, there we go, de Soily realized that images and symbols are the virtual language of the unconscious. Symbols that can be used to implement psychological change. Yeah, so you go on this journey, this guided imagery, then say like, let's say the dragon is, I don't know, like say you have social anxiety or something. And let's say the dragon is the social environment. So you've made this dragon into the social environment, but it doesn't, that's just like using your imagination at first. But if you get deep enough into it, and the reason why it works, if you ask me, is because you're invested. Anytime we invest time and energy into something, we just become unconsciously invested into something, right? Especially like anything that we go down. This is how a lot of the secret societies and stuff, you know, rope people in and other things. That's a whole other show. But when you invest your time and energy into something, the unconscious gets invested in it, and it's hard to pull it back. So if you take someone on a long journey, so let's say, for example, a dragon represents a social environment. Instead of just saying, hey, man, just go to this party and get over it. No, I have social anxiety. Well, that dragon could represent a social atmosphere. But if you take them on a long imaginary path working type journey until they have to face this dragon, and then they slay the dragon in this journey, it does something to our unconscious, theoretically, that supposedly helps cure that kind of stuff. I don't know how effective that is, honestly. I mean, active imagination is effective psychologically, but I'm trying to figure out how they're relating this to OBEs. Guided effective imagery. So everybody was doing this stuff. Even this guy, Hans Carl Luhner. This system helps the client to free the imagination, define mental problems, and even check on the course of his or her psychological change during the course of therapy. These techniques are actually quite extensive, but the basic process begins with teaching the patient to imagine neutral or positive mental pictures. Then they're taken on an imaginary journey where he or she has to handle more threatening experiences. See? So first it's all like sunshine and roses and you're at your favorite place, and then it's like going through levels in a video game. Give her an example. Here's an example. A female client, for instance, might be taken to a deserted roadside where she must confront a motorist in a symbolic representation of a sexual encounter. The imagery invoked during the waking dream will alert the therapist to problems the patient is facing in real life, as well as possible solutions to them. So if she's just going along with her imagination, and the next thing you know, she just meets some guy on the side of the road, you know, the therapist's like, why is her unconscious bringing up some dude on the side of the road in a desert? Note taken. What does that mean? And then they have to like interpret that as to what it means. Now, although each of these researchers use slightly different approaches to the induction of mental imagery and guided reverie, they all work from a basic premise. Our mental imagery can have a profound effect on our waking lives. By working with a patient's imagery, one can also change the person. At least one researcher today believes that this change can include learning to completely divorce the consciousness from the body. Sander Brent, a developmental psychologist by training, designed his techniques as an adjunct to more conventional sensitivity training. Originally working with several experimental workshops at Wayne State University in Detroit, he began experimenting with imagery exercises several years ago as a way to help people learn control over their mental experiences. This training included having the students construct an imaginary trip into outer space. Brent soon found that after being guided through the voyage, some of the subjects reported experiences very similar to classic OBEs and near-death experiences. Okay, fuck. Now we get down to it. I guess it's kind of important that we do talk about, you know, active imagination and guided imagery and what it does, but like, just give me the information. How did it work with out-of-body experiences? So what happened was, as they were taking these patients and people through this stuff, let's say this Brent guy, he was taking people to outer space in their active imagination, path workings, whatever you want to call them. And the students started popping out of body, some of them. Some of them had similar experiences to what NDE people had. Now, this discovery led the psychologist to reformulate his exercises specifically as a formal OBE induction technique, although the program is basically designed for group and not individual use. So here's a guy of interest that we need to look up into this method. Sander Brent, Sandor Brent, Brent. Sander, I don't know if this is a guy or girl, sorry, but Sander Brent has worked with only large classes of participants. His technique would be somewhat awkward to implement on an individual level. His procedures also require the use of a guide to help the participant through the imagery, through a prepared tape that worked very well. Ideally, a group of students should meet with a trained tour guide familiar with Brent's program. I've never heard of this guy. Never. I mean, lots of people have guided meditations. Hell, I have some now, but this is why I think this book is great. You guys should get this. If you're into astral travel and you want to collect books about it, this is one of the top 10. Leaving the Body, a practical guide by Scott Rogo. Because there's so much research and information in here that I'd never even heard of. So since Brent has published the complete text of one of his imaginary tours, the guide need merely read this material to the group or devise a series of suggestions based on it. So we're not going to do this, but I think there's a guided imagery thing in that comes up next. Just remember, just as important as your physical settings are, your psychological attitude towards the experiment is important too. It will help if you get together with some fellow travelers and talk for a while, develop mutual trust, and discuss the experiences that may result from the guided imagery. Once you have stabilized your physical and psychological whatever, the actual induction phase may begin. Your group leader should start by appealing to your intellectual powers and then gradually guide your attention to more experiential levels, speaking in a slow, soft, and calm tone of voice. I could do this. The guide should not speak as though reading the instructions, but should extemporize as he or she guides you. Brent, for example, always speaks extemporaneously. What does that mean? But he builds his remarks around a tightly architectured sequence of suggestions. So he's the dungeon master, basically, is what he is. That's what he is. He's taken all these people through a kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons guided imagery, which is pretty much what pathworking is. But what does extemporaneously mean? What does extemporize mean? I have to look this word up. I'm sorry. I don't have a very big dictionary in my head. To extemporize, to perform or compose something such as music or speech without preparation, to improvise. Yeah, so to improvise, not be so formulaic. So the guide begins to explain that you're about to experience a world of a mental life out there, in the real world and not merely inside your head. Then he or she instructs you to observe the room in which you are located and consider how people normally view the outside world as something apart and away from us. Then the guide explains how limited purely physical sight actually is, reminding you that only a tiny peek into the vast spectrum of the physical world is available through the cues we receive from the optical organs. We actually construct the environment in which we perceive ourselves through these minimal cues. Now, this guy believes that this phase of the program softens psychological resistance to the OBE by helping subjects to realize that there are other avenues of perceptions available to them besides just optical viewing. The next two suggestions continue the softening mode. So then the guide now explains how human perceptions are based greatly on our expectations, especially in the way the environment around us is structured. The guide also reminds you that soon you will be going on an imaginary journey where you will be experiencing perceptions different from any you have had before. You are reminded that you will be incapable of categorizing your experiences. You must accept them for what they are. Yeah. Does this sound familiar? Now, since at that point, it's kind of like it's just a path working is what it is, but it's with a guide. So at that point, you're in a very receptive and passive state during this imagery session. And all these comments and suggestions will work on an unconscious as well as a conscious level. The above suggestions will help you divorce yourself from relying on your critical judgment during your imaginary trip. Critically assessing your experiences may limit your ability to leave the body. So don't sit there while he's guiding you through it. Don't sit there and judge it the whole time. Just let whatever happens happen. So your guided OB is somewhat akin to the process of remote viewing, during which you must also learn to take a non-judgmental attitude towards anything you experience. And then eventually the guide will remind you that whatever you experience or how you experience your physical body is also a partially subjective experience. It is by habit that we associate our minds as inside the body and cut off from direct interaction with the outside world. This habit can be broken with practice. And then the guide will tell you to move your focus of awareness to different locations in the body, suggesting that you become aware of each part of your body, and to shift your consciousness there and literally experience yourself from that perspective. So instead of, the idea is that we all experience our consciousness from our heads, like from the center of our head or from our eyes. But if we move our consciousness to a part of our body and say, now that's the center of your perception. It sounds a little weird, but I've done that before, and it can get pretty strange. Depending on what body part you go to, right? So they teach you to have higher technology. So now I'm taking here. So they have tech. I don't know what y'all are talking about. Sorry. Just trying to be interactive with the chat. The guide constantly reminds you to momentarily intensify and simply release the tensions you may find at any body location. And then you're next instructed to scan your body mentally and locate any areas of tension. So this is the relaxation phase, basically. After this, though, this lengthy preparatory phase is over. Then the guide will start guiding you into the OBE phase. Now, I've got audios that do the same thing, but I don't exactly do it this way. But then the guide instructs you to leave the body by projecting through the head. You're instructed to stand next to your body and inspect it. And at this point, your guide can instruct you to carry out an out-of-body task he or she, or whatever she pleases, as decided by the group. And then Brent uses an OBE voyage into outer space, since this aids the student to experience a more defined separation from the body and teaches the person, through the use of his or her own observations, to think in non-analytical terms. Since the student will be experiencing new sights and sounds, he or she will not be tempted to base perceptions on past experiences. Your guide will instruct you to leave the room and the building, and now you're asked to rise into the air until you can see the landscape beneath you. The guide urges you to propel yourself into outer space and suggest images such as planets and star patterns that you might see while looking back to Earth. The trip ends as your instructor guides you to a great void or a white light. And then you just kind of reverse your journey back. Well, this stuff has been being used since the beginning of time, right? So if you've purchased like any of my audios or even got the free ones at ltvpodcast.shop, I do the same thing, right? Like, you know how people, when they talk about the Kabbalistic cross, oh, this is what the symbols mean in the Kabbalistic cross. Well, yeah, you should know kind of what the symbols mean. But the guided imagery that you're supposed to do as you go through it, in fact, I would say if you're a good ceremonial magician, and you don't have to be a magician to do this, but if you're a good ceremonial magician, the whole time you're doing your stuff, you're doing this visualization. So, for instance, when you do like the Kabbalistic cross, you start where your feet are, and then you kind of grow and rise, and you're supposed to rise through the earth and rise into space, and then you see this big cross of light, and this is like the initiating process of all of the other rituals, like the LBRP, the middle pillar, all this stuff. So I could see how this would work, but I'm still not seeing how it would get someone to pop into their etheric body. Even though I did pop into mine doing this stuff later when I laid down, not during the rituals though. We're not going to get into like a guided session that Brent would do, because that would take like 10 pages. It's kind of brief, that what we just talked about. But the only critical part of this procedure is for the guide to arrange suggestions in a specific order to break down your habitual ways of thinking. And this is kind of what hypnosis does too, if you're doing any healing kind of stuff. So it breaks down your habitual way of thinking, frees the mind from the way you normally think about it, relaxes you, and then guides you out of body if you're going to do this as an OBE. This makes a lot of practical sense, since the use of mental suggestion to relax or dehabituate your thought process works, or to shift thinking from a concrete to a more experiential level and interact with mental imagery are all apparently related to the ability to induce the OBE. But Brent, this guy that we need to look into, has a habit of appealing to the intellect, then gradually turning the participant's attention towards more experientially oriented considerations also might be of great value to divorce yourself from the body. So, interesting stuff, right? People started, the whole point of this chapter, though, is that they didn't even know that this was a way to get out of body. So active imagination and guided visualization was first a clinical way that therapists would work with their clients to try to not only find their unconscious problems or find their issues and heal them, but to dig more into their psyche to find other issues, things like that. What started happening, because I'm just summarizing this, what started happening with all of these therapists is that people started having out-of-body experiences, or they started reporting back things of the OBE nature. So these other doctors like Brent and a couple other people took these methods, switched them up, used them to induce OBEs. And that was a long time ago. Now we do this kind of on the reg, right? Like there's a lot of people that have guided OBE meditations and path workings and stuff like that. So, but back then, this was like when they first started doing it, and his results were pretty impressive. 12 volunteers claimed that they had been able to get partway through the body, while 5 others reported full OBEs. A large number, 18, explained that they did not feel as if they had actively left the body, but had indeed experienced themselves out in space. So, yeah, that's how powerful the imagination is, too. The majority of the respondents found the guided imagery enjoyable. So, at the very least, it's healing, right? And those who were able to merge deepest with the experience of being out of body consistently rated the experience as more pleasant than those who had a more superficial response. Some of the experiential reports Brent collected also read like fairly typical out of body experiences. They would say things like the most vivid moment, writes one student, was that in which I stood behind myself and viewed the class. The guy had an OBE. Basically, he popped out of body and he was looking at the class that was under hypnosis. The feeling of soaring through space was difficult to achieve, but my imagination was at its height when I was asked to float into the nothingness. Returning to my body was not so difficult, but I felt a positive relief at my consciousness again being seated within my body. Yeah. But are you guys, so a show of hands in the chat, like, are you guys afraid of, what's up, Sudi? Are you guys afraid of hypnosis? Honestly, just be honest with me. I'm not going to judge you. I don't care if you are, if you're not, whatever. It's cool. I get it if you are. Actually, I wonder if I can do a poll. Can I do a poll in the chat? I used to be able to do that. Yeah, start a poll. That way you don't have to say, are you afraid? Even the lurkers can vote, right? Hypnosis. Because this is where I find a problem with guided imagery. Because some people are scared of it. And if you're scared of something, you're not gonna do it, right? If you can, vote for me though, please vote on that poll I put in the chat. It's pretty interesting. A lot of people that I talk to say that they have fears about other people being in their mind, which to me is entirely rational. If you're having to trust that someone knows the methods to get to your unconscious, and then once they play with those methods, they're going to actually do healthy things for you, right? Like not try to, manipulate you in some sense of the word. Where is the, did I do that right? Okay, yeah, there's an actual yes and no. Okay. I'll wait a little bit because we only got 7 votes. But you guys remember, the reason why psychologists are called shrinks is because most people feel that they're being, a lot of people feel that their heads are getting messed with or they're being manipulated. And I'm going to be honest with you. I went to a therapist a few times in my life, and one time I went to a therapist with my partner, and they were clearly biased in that situation. You could tell it. Even my partner was like, yeah, they're taking my side on everything, And it even times when I know they shouldn't. So yeah, hypnosis is even deeper than that. It's not just someone asking you questions. It's someone like guiding you through an experience, tapping into your unconscious, opening doors that are inside of you, you know? Okay, so basically I tried to scare the shit out of all of you guys about it, and most of you are saying no. But for the people that did say yes, or whoever said yes, how many of you did, whatever, like, I get it. I do. I totally understand. Because if, like, say for instance, when I made those audios, like those guided path workings, I'd been talking about making those things like I do everything else for months. And the one reason why I was afraid to do them is because some of the symbols in there are so powerful that it's going to affect you. And I was in this like existential crisis of like, who am I to mess with people's minds and psyches like this? That's what I tell myself. But at the end of the day, I really wanted to help, you know? So I finally stopped struggling with it and just made them and then told people, look, if you get them, they're going to help you. You're probably going to it'll be almost like some kind of weird initiation, you know, but it's going to open up doors into your consciousness, or you might have an OBE. Like, I don't know. God, here, let me see if I can find this too. Cause this doesn't just work in OBEs. Like, this also works with people that have had like encounters and stuff, right? I wonder if I can look up the Betty and Barney Hill. What would you call it? Regression? Do you guys remember hearing like... Yeah, here it is. This is the raw recording here. Now, see, the reason why I want to play this is because of how powerful it is. And then imagine someone's trying to, like, help you get out of body this way. What was it?
Whatever car would just turn over, it won't fire. And he's trying to stop the car.
You did what?
He's trying to start the car and it won't start. And the men are coming towards us. And I think, well, I can get away from this. If I get the car door open, I can run in the woods and hide.
Now, just for some of you that don't know, I'm only playing this as an example. Betty and Barney Hill is a classic UFO case where they were, I think they were like an interracial couple back in the 50s. So their life was hard enough in some cases, right? Really cool people. Then they had this experience of like a UFO encounter. And this guy, and I forget who it is, takes them, regresses them in hypnosis back through it, right?
And I'm thinking it, and I just put my hand on the car door to open it. And the men come up, and they open it for me.
Like she's crying.
And they open the car door, and there's not very big men. And there's 1, 2, 3.
See if I can get to Barney's side.
It's clearing. Oh, it will hurt. Don't do it. Don't do it. And he said, no, it won't hurt. And he sticks a needle into my nail. And
it's so freaking sad, too, isn't it?
I am. And he put the map. The map rolled up, and he put it back in the space in the wall.
So my whole point of playing that was, I mean, maybe one day we'll do a deeper show about that, is like how deep this stuff can get into you. Like, if you listen to Barney on here, like Barney Hill, when he starts talking, he starts screaming to the top of his lungs. But then again, like guided, we're not talking about regression. We're talking about guided imagery. I guess what I'm trying to say, and I feel like I'm going in circles. I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you're going to do guided imagery to have an OBE experience, like make sure that it's important to make sure that you take the time to trust the person that's doing it. I personally, I know this is going to sound like narcissistic or whatever, and I don't care, but I personally like listen to my own audios if I'm trying to do guided imagery. I don't trust a lot of people messing with my mind. You guys do. When it comes to guided imagery to get out of body, I could see why that wouldn't be a big deal. But you're not afraid of it. But I wonder, is it because you really don't know how powerful it is? Right? Like, I would much rather someone do like just the sleeping part or the hemisync stuff to try to like get out of body and go through the paralysis mode, get out of body, or do the lucid dreaming, that cool thing that we talked about. Like if you're going to use guided path workings, maybe it's me. Maybe I'm probably projecting all of my shit onto you guys, right? But maybe it's me. But like I'm very susceptible to like hypnosis and stuff because I tend to relax easy, you know. And if you go back and listen to my past life regression with Daniel Alexa, I don't remember a lot of that stuff I was saying. And I can't tell you, people ask me all the time, is it real, whatever. But I know that it was to the point where my consciousness was submissive. Like I had to answer when he asked me a question. That's all I knew. The rest kind of did its own thing. So when someone's guiding you into an OBE session with this method that they're talking about in this book, there are clear steps to get to a certain level, to open up your consciousness to a certain level. Even though at first it's just like active imagination. At first it's just like, let's create, let's relax. You know, we'll spend a lot of time relaxing your body, the muscles in your body. Then we're going to do some suggesting stuff, you know, to try to basically nothing to be afraid of, just beautiful scenarios and scenes or cool stuff like outer space. We'll get you going. But as you get deeper into it, your consciousness and your unconscious is invested. It's deeply invested into what's happening. Plus, you're already relaxed. You're already focused. You're already open. So at that point, when a person's trying to get you out of body, we have to hope and know that they're a decent person, right? That's all. I'm a control freak, though, so I'm probably projecting this onto you guys. I don't like anything in control of my head whatsoever. However, a lot of these people, so at present, Rogo says, the evidence for the efficacy of Brent's particular type of guided imagery is a stalemate. So the evidence isn't that revealing. Although many people experience themselves out of body as a result of the induction or the deep hypnosis or guided imagery stuff, there seems little formal documentation that they have actually separated from their bodies. This is the problem most experimenters who have toyed with OBE induction procedures have had to face. Dr. Palmer ran into this this same problem during his University of Virginia projects. It doesn't mean that Brent's guided imagery is worthless, though. Dr. Schmeidler's results suggest that as a result of the Brent program, at least a few people were able to make correct observations about distant locations when they were trying to do the remote viewing stuff. So while some people may be incited to fantasize that they are out of body, others may be able to make more efficient use of the system. It's too wishy-washy. It's not as cool to me. Like, this method is cool. Especially, like, it's really effective if you're going to do like a path working and use archetypal or occult symbolism. I think it's really effective. But you have to be talking to people that are even interested in that stuff. I'm just looking here to see. All participants were instructed to lie down on the floor or on couches available in the room where we were meeting. Following several leads suggested by Palmer's research, I decided to induce a Gansfield setting as an adjunct to the guided imagery strategy, since sensory isolation seems to help induce OBEs. Setting up a group Gansfield is not the easiest thing to do when you have close to 20 people on your hands, but Dr. Moss and I had come prepared with several halved ping pong balls, transparent tape, and wads of cotton. It was not long before we had the entire group lying down on their backs and staring at the ceiling through their makeshift goggles. As one of the participants quipped, at least I had successfully induced a little orphan Annie, experiences in everyone. I also supplied the lights in the room with low wattage red bulbs so that everyone would be staring at a blank reddish visual field. The home in which we were meeting was located fairly near a freeway, so the rather homogeneous background noise of the distant traffic, augmented by a chorus of homegrown California crickets, served nicely to produce an unpatterned auditory field. Since I wanted to experimentally validate any OBEs that might result from the session, I used the coffee break to slip into an adjoining room where I placed a target picture on a coffee table. That's pretty cool. Yeah. Don't tell them, like, place a picture there, but don't tell them what it is so nobody knows what it is. This picture was one of many I use for ESP testing, which I keep sealed in an individual envelope. I had no idea which picture I had brought with me and placed it on the table without looking at it. No one knew I was going to incorporate an ESP test as a part of the workshop, and I made sure that no one entered the room before the test session began. I guided the group through a revised version of the Brent procedures. This included having the participants question the objectivity of their perceptions and having them transfer awareness to different locations in their bodies. I gradually worked up to the point where they would be asked to leave their body. I suggested that they leave through their head, look at their own bodies, and then go to the next room and look at the target I had placed there. I suggested that those subjects who had not yet left the body give themselves the mental suggestion that they would indeed project them when they were ready to go. There followed a 20-minute period of silence during which I allowed the subjects to explore their OBEs or try to experience one. At the end of this period, I followed Brent's suggestions by having the participants retrace their steps back to the body and re-enter it. So what were the results? Okay. There are practical problems in running experiments like this, but luckily I have very good imagery, blah, blah, blah. So I returned to the experimental area for a group debriefing. 5 of the participants, 4 of them were women, felt they had undergone OBEs. This means that 22% of the volunteers had successfully merged with the guided imagery, a rate not inconsistent with Brent's own findings. While all of the successful participants had made it into the adjoining room, most of them experienced some difficulty focusing on the target. One woman thought it depicted something like a carpet with a red banner. Another could only describe it as a white field with a red streak against it. Both descriptions impressed me since the target picture turned out to be a color picture of an American flag waving in the wind. Dude, that's crazy, though. Because it's like their consciousness kind of picked up on it, but there was something in the way. So what they're describing are actual patterns and stuff that's in the picture, but they didn't get a full kind of, like visualization of it. Okay, so, I mean, we can go over a lot of the stuff later, but some people, so I can tell you this too, like when I did this stuff at, when I went and did the speaking events, so I did a lecture on, hermetics, the Kabbalah, and magic, and then I did a guided workshop on OBEs. Most of the people that did get out of body and even went outside to the fireplace and stuff were women, believe it or not. Most of them were women. A couple of guys had some experiences for sure, but the ones that got all the way out of body, went out to the fire, they were all like freaking out because they got out of body. They were women. So I wonder if that's a thing. Like if some women are more susceptible to the guided imagery thing. Like not susceptible, don't take that wrong, but like they're just better at it, you know. We got to test this stuff more, man. This is my point. Like when you turn on YouTube, this is my whole point of this. Like when you turn on YouTube, you will hear some fantastic stories of like people going to different realms and the 12th dimension and the Akashic records and all this stuff. Yet when you really look at the data or the research that when people explore consciousness on the regular, like these people do it on the regular. Some of these people are psychologists, therapists. They talked about Monroe. They talked about Jung. Some of these people dedicated their whole lives and work to OBEs. The results are mainly not as magnificent as some of the like YouTube stuff that I watch. The actual real data is more believing to me. Just like what she's talking about. You know, I got some people, some of them got out of body. Half of them did. Then I, tried to get even those people to look at the target that I placed in the envelope, and their consciousness only picked up a portion of it. Right? So they could definitely, there's proof that we can definitely explore our consciousness. But there's also a lot of proof that there's a lot of fuzzy things and a lot more questions that need to be asked. And I don't want to go on a rant here towards the end of the show, but I think it's a real problem if we just believe what everyone's telling us about their OBE experiences, especially the ones that are trying to sell us a course for $49.99, $99.99. I don't have anything wrong with selling courses. I have some myself, but what I'm saying is the majority of the data shows that when we explore consciousness, it's not as definite as the stories that we read in our, how do I put this? Like new agey type books. It's not like that. People get out of body. They can get around their body. They can go a little further in the etheric, and then they can have other conscious experiences. But once they start trying to do actual conscious experimentation, like OBEs, remote viewing, ESP, telekinesis, things like that, there are definite barriers that we reach. It's not like Wizard of Ozzy as it seems a lot of times, right? And these barriers can be like pushed past if enough of us keep doing it. So I think it hinders us, what I'm saying, to just believe whatever is being instructed to us a lot. So we need to do this for ourselves. All right. So we're going to end this thing. We're going to get out of here. And I'm really interested in the hypnagogic stuff, like the portals. I understand the guided imagery thing. I just didn't want to get too deep into that. I don't want to, that's a pretty simple kind of thing to get into. It's just, are you open to being guided consciously or not? That's it. And if you're scared of being hypnotized, then you're probably not. But in summary, man, like the lucid dreaming stuff, that's cool. I'm going to try that tonight. And if you guys are like really into this, try it too. Try it with me. First, make sure, don't just jump right into the OBE thing. Like first, get yourself into a lucid dream. Make a rule that when this happens, I'm going to wake up, and do that a few times for the next like few nights or whatever. Once that's solid, once you're having like solid lucid dreams and that rule's working, mine's like if I die in the dream, I'll wake up. Then set the next rule. Like every time I see a TV, or for me, that's what I'm going to do. Doorways and televisions. If I see a doorway or a television and I'm lucid and I go through the doorway or through the television, it's going to take me to my body, where my body actually is. So this is going to take a few nights, but it's exciting for sure. Yeah. All right, guys. Any questions? Any final statements? No? All right. So shields up, fellow travelers. Yeah. I want to do a show maybe, what's today? Is today Thursday or is it Wednesday? I might do another show this week, right? Like, I know I'm supposed to do Mary's show. Yeah, damn. Yeah, well, so Mary's show should be on Monday, actually. So be looking for that. But I might do another one tomorrow. I don't know. I really want to do a show on those orange orbs. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but ever since they got into the drones and stuff, a whole shit ton of orange orbs have been showing up in the sky. Go check out UFO Seekers YouTube channel. I trust them. I trust UFO Seekers YouTube like I trust Mary's readings. It's very hard to find the real deal in all of these categories. So just get on YouTube, search UFO Seekers. If you're not subscribe, and check out what Tim and Tracy are finding over Area 51. And there's other videos of these like orange orbs popping up all over the place too. It's freaking crazy. All right, good night, y'all. Good night, Void Walkers. Sweet dreams. See you in the gaming world and all that stuff, if you're a gamer. Love you.
Tombstones climbing up the sky to claim the boredom and the whine of the radiator, to freeze the fates that intertwine, unresolved and undefined in this echo chamber. Once you've given up the ghost, just like Lazarus, you'll know there's an operator, some strange passenger inside. To that strange power I'm resigned like an iron anchor.